Order, order. We start with questions. Secretary of State for Housing, Community and Local Government, Damian Hinds.
Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government is committed to building the new homes that people need so we can end the housing crisis that we inherited. The method for calculating local housing need aligns with the government's ambition for 1.5 million new homes over the course of this Parliament. It reflects affordability and there are no plans to change it.
Thank you.
Minister.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm grateful to the Secretary of State for his response. The housing formula has resulted in huge increases for parts of rural England, including a doubling of the number in my East Hampshire constituency, and it should be reviewed overall. But this question is about one specific aspect, whereby, in an unintended way, also the mix of housing that's being delivered may be skewed. I've written to his colleague, the Minister. All I ask is that the Department looks at that with an open mind and considers it fully.
Secretary of State.
I'm always happy to listen to his suggestions and ensure that he gets a response. But just to reassure him, the housing targets do reflect the baseline of local housing stock. But I will ensure he gets the letter that he's requesting.
Question number 2.
Secretary of State.
The Mayor of London and I discussed the rate of house building in London as soon as I came into office at the beginning of September last year. House building in London is flatlining because the previous government failed to take action when it was clear it was happening from 2023 right across the country. Last October, the Mayor and I launched a joint stimulus package to increase house building in London. We and our teams remain in regular contact to ensure we can get on and build the new housing that Londoners need.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Secretary of State mentions a countrywide problem, but the housing starts numbers in London are particularly pitiful. There were only about 370 new starts for every month of last year. That is the lowest level for almost any region for any year that I have been alive. There were nearly 6 times as many starts in the South East, even though the housing crisis in the South East is exported from London. So it would be good to hear a little bit more about exactly what that plan involves, what number of starts the Secretary of State expects to see this year, and if that target is missed, what will happen next?
We are, of course, because of the time it takes between submitting an application and getting spades in the ground, seeing the tail end of what was going on under the previous government. We've already changed planning legislation and passed what is now the Planning and Infrastructure Act, which will dramatically speed up the planning process to get more housing through the system faster and lowering the cost for developers of getting those homes built. We've made changes to the NPPF to speed up house building in London, around London and across the rest of the country as well, and we expect to see that upturn over coming months.
Marsha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In Battersea, we are delivering more affordable homes for people to buy and rent. And I welcome the recent plans by the Mayor, the Council and Battersea Power Station to deliver more than 200 social homes. So will the Secretary of State join me in welcoming these plans, which show that Labour in London is delivering for local people?
I am more than happy, Mr. Speaker, to add my congratulations to her own to Wandsworth Council for ensuring that they are increasing the supply of affordable housing around Battersea Power Station, where we desperately need to see more. There's a fantastic development there, but on the Wandsworth side, inadequate levels of social housing under the previous Conservative administration that council had.
Shadow Minister Gareth Bacon.
Mr. Speaker, at the outset of the Secretary of State's answer to my honourable friend, one could be forgiven for thinking that we had an entirely new Mayor of London, but in fact, this year we celebrate, or perhaps more appropriately, commiserate, a decade of Sadiq Khan's tenure as London Mayor, and in this decade, in the most prosperous city in Europe, Sadiq Khan has overseen not just stalling but consistently falling rates of private construction starts. Recent figures from Morior show that London began building just 3,248 new homes in the first 9 months of 2025, leaving it on track to start building fewer than 5,000 in 2025 in total. Incredibly, Mr. Speaker, the government's response has been to cut their floundering mayor's housing targets by 11%, but skyrocket targets in outer London authorities, which is where the vast majority of Greenbelt land is. This includes an increase of almost 400% compared to previously approved London plan targets in my own local council area of Bromley. Can the Secretary of State please explain why people living in places like Bromley and our local Greenbelt must pay the price for Sadiq Khan's decade of failure and uselessness?
Secretary of State.
Of course, it's not the Mayor of London who can change planning legislation, it's government. And despite knowing the problems that it caused, the previous government did nothing for 14 years. It's taken us to do it, and we've done it in barely a year and a half in power. Now, he mentions Bromley. I've got Bromley's figures in front of me. They managed just 70 housing starts last year, just 70 across the entire borough. Entirely inadequate. They need to do better.
Bacon.
What the Secretary of State didn't say, of course, Mr. Speaker, is that no, local boroughs are not in charge of building out planning consents. And what he didn't acknowledge is that local boroughs in London are subject to the London Plan. Now, the Secretary of State claims that he's working with the Mayor of London, who writes the London Plan, to build more homes, but unlike him, the facts don't heed the Mayor's spin. According to Molior, there were just 3,950 new homes sold in London in the first half of 2025. And as I've just said, 3,248 private house starts in the first 9 months of 2025 against a 9-month target of 66,000. The Secretary of State has said last year that his own job should be on the line if he fails to meet his housing target. So why doesn't he practice what he preaches? Do London as a favour and tell sorry Sadiq to pack his bags over his decade of failure.
Well, as he should know, changes to the London Plan were part of the package that I announced with the Mayor of London, because this government is prepared to work with the Mayor of London to get the homes built. The previous government wanted to hobble the Mayor of London so he couldn't get the homes built, so they could score silly little political points rather than giving people the homes that they need to live in. They were happy to sit back and watch homelessness double over 14 years. We're not. We're going to build the homes this country needs, including in London.
Good job.
Question number 3, Mr. Speaker.
Secretary of State.
Yep, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. This government, as we've been hearing, inherited a housing crisis with the sector flatlining nationally since 2023. In October, the Mayor of London and I launched a joint package to speed up house building in London. In December, my colleague, the Housing Minister, launched a consultation on reforms to the National Planning Policy Framework to increase housing supply, including moving to a default yes to applications near railway stations. All of that will increase house building and help us achieve our target during this Parliament.
Good job.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Secretary of State for his answer. In my Spelthorne constituency, as a result of action taken by the independent Labour, Lib Dem and Green-led Borough Council, we have no local plan and haven't had for a couple of years. It was finally submitted to the Planning Inspectorate on the 25th of November. As a result, it's been a sort of planning Wild West in Spelthorne for the last couple of years, which I'm keen to bring to an end. Could the Secretary of State use his good offices to influence the Planning Inspector to try and turn around this particular local plan as soon as possible?
Secretary.
Well, I would certainly urge all local authorities to ensure that they have in place a local plan. 2/3 of local authorities, when we came into government, didn't have a plan. They need one because it will help developers to know what they can build and where they can build them and speed up house building. And I think we all want to see that.
Helena, Dollimore.
When we are building the new homes that we desperately need, it's really important that we think about playgrounds and access to play. I've just audited all the playgrounds in Hastings and Rye and found that many parents and children have to walk over 20 minutes, particularly in new build estates, and housing associations have shamefully closed many playgrounds in recent years. So will the Minister meet with me to discuss these findings and how we can make sure that new house building includes access to play and put pressure on housing associations to live up to their duty to provide play as well?
Well, of course, she makes a very important point, and we're not just trying to build homes, we're trying to build communities, and communities need the facilities and infrastructure that allows them to meet their wider aspirations for the places where they're living. Some of that will be in the new NPPF that we've brought forward, but I'm more than happy to make sure she gets the meeting she wants to ensure that the detail of what her constituents want to see is included in the changes we're bringing forward.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Secretary of State in his response talks about increasing the pace of build-outs, but also quality is important too, as we strive for this 1.5 million homes. So would the Secretary of State comment to the House whether he will use the powers of the Building Safety Act 2022 to make the new Homes Ombudsman a mandatory process, because we currently only have 60% of developers signed up to that scheme?
Yeah. State?
Yeah. Well, we are making changes to building standards and the BSR that he will be aware of. I'm happy to look at the proposal that he makes and happy to engage with him further if that would be helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In Blackpool, we've got a waiting list around 12,000 for social and council housing. With the deprivation throughout Blackpool, we know the quality of housing is below where it needs to be, and so many people are struggling with their health and other conditions. So will the Secretary of State outline to myself and Blackpool Council what more can be done for us to build those social housing we desperately need to meet the target of 1.5 million?
Well, he describes a situation in Blackpool that I'm sure members across the House will recognise from many other constituencies as well, the desperate need for more social and affordable housing. And he will be pleased to be reminded that the new Social and Affordable Homes programme, £39 billion, which will deliver the biggest increase in social and affordable housing in this country for a generation, opens for bids next month. And I hope his local authority will be keen to make applications to it.
Shadow Minister Paul Holmes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with a new year, often come New Year's resolutions. And so I wondered if the Secretary of State will make a New Year's resolution and accept the truth that the government will not meet its 1.5 million housing target that he set out. And will he confirm that he still thinks that his job is on the line if he doesn't achieve that? But, Mr. Speaker, with huge focus placed on rural areas with no infrastructure, but cities, often Labour cities, left off the hook, will he now commit to changing the formula to make it fairer and, more importantly, more deliverable?
Secretary of State.
Well, I think if his party hadn't scrapped house building targets around the country, we might be seeing more of the kinds of homes that we need in every single part of the country, urban, suburban, or indeed rural. And as for our targets, the OBR's judgment, the independent OBR set up by the previous Conservative government, their judgment is that this government is going to oversee the biggest increase in house building for 40 years, and that is going to put the key to their own homes in the hands of people who were denied that under the Conservatives.
Philip Siddy.
Number 4, please, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I'll take questions 4, 7, 10 and 18 together. Leasehold and commonhold reform are key priorities for this government, and we remain absolutely determined to honour the commitments made in our manifesto and finally bring the feudal leasehold system to an end in this Parliament. We've already brought into force a range of provisions from the Leasehold and Freehold Reform Act 2024 and will progress the required secondary legislation to commence many more this year. We also intend to publish an ambitious draft commonhold and leasehold reform bill in the coming weeks.
Lipsody.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The leaseholders on Hillcrest Estate in Highgate in my constituency have written to me because they have 84 years left on their leases. They are unsure whether they should wait for the government reforms, which, by the way, they welcome, or whether they should proceed with lease extension now to avoid the costs of incurring marriage value. Their fear, which I'm very sympathetic to, is that they extend under the current law and then better terms are brought in under new legislation. I know the Minister has just said reforms will happen in this Parliament, but could I urgently ask him to provide further clarity on the timings of the proposed reforms, as any savings from these reforms could have a huge impact on 100 of my constituents living in the Hillcrest Estate?
Minister.
Well, I thank my honourable friend for her question. I appreciate fully, Mr. Speaker, that leaseholders with leases approaching 80 years remaining want clarity as to when the enfranchisement provisions in the 2024 Act will be brought into force. To bring those provisions into force, we need to not only consult on valuation rates, but also rectify through primary legislation the small number of serious flaws in the 2024 Act that the previous government bequeathed to us. The latter is obviously a more challenging proposition than the former, but we intend to make the necessary fixes as soon as possible so that leaseholders can begin to benefit from the new valuation process. But I'm more than happy to speak to my honourable friend in further detail about the way we plan to take these reforms forward.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was glad to get involved in the government's recent consultation on property service fees. Over 700 of my constituents living in new builds in and around Reading have written to me about high fees and unfair behaviour from property management agents. One constituent called Sunil said to me that we are throwing our money down the drain to these crooks and they know they can take advantage. So will the Housing Minister meet with me and my fellow Labour MPs working on this issue to discuss what more can be done to crack down on such awful behaviour from rogue agents such as First Sports?
Minister.
Mr Speaker, I thank my honourable friend for that question. The Government is determined to reduce the prevalence of private estate management arrangements and provide those who currently live on freehold estates with greater rights and protections. To that end, we launched 2 comprehensive consultations before Christmas. I'm very glad to hear my honourable friend has engaged with those consultations. I encourage all honourable members from across the House to do the same, and I'm more than happy to meet with a group of colleagues on these benches to discuss the consultations and our proposals in more detail.
Murray Kelly-Ford.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Residents on the Akeley Woods development in my constituency have recently been informed that collectively they'll be charged £15,000 this year for the management company to run their estate of just over 270 homes, on top of the scandalous £31,000 just to cover the running costs of the management company itself. This is happening to millions of homeowners up and down the country. So does the Minister agree that it's long past time that we end the scandal of freeholders being locked into agreements with management companies and make local authority adoption the default for new builds?
Minister.
I thank my honourable friend for her question, and the case she draws the House's attention to highlights the unfair charges that so many residential freeholders are subject to. As well as acting to reduce the prevalence of privately managed estates, which are the root cause of the problems experienced by residential freeholders, we are committed to implementing new consumer protections for homeowners on freehold estates. The consultation launched before Christmas seeks views, Mr Speaker, on how, not whether, we implement the relevant provisions from the Leasehold and Freehold Reform Act, and I know my honourable friend will ensure her constituents are supported in sharing their views on the subject as part of that exercise.
Caroline Downey.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. My Gosport constituents are, so many of them are locked in some lousy leaseholds, and they're so tired of seeing service charges rise while the quality of service is falling. Bills are often eye-watering and quite often just completely opaque. The Conservatives did pass the Leasehold and Freehold Reform Act, as he said. It did give leaseholders more powers to better scrutinise and challenge these costs. But on his watch, implementation is being painfully slow. Why the delay? When will leaseholders begin to see the benefits of legislation that was designed to put an end to the practice that he himself described as unfair and unreasonable?
Minister.
Well, I thank the honourable lady for her question, and I fully appreciate the wish of her leaseholders in her constituency and across the country to see these reforms introduced. She's absolutely right that the 2024 Act included measures to enhance transparency around service charges, to make it easier for leaseholders to challenge unreasonable service charge increases. We consulted last July on how to introduce those. It's a very technical consultation. I draw her attention to it, quite lengthy document. We will introduce the necessary secondary legislation this year so that leaseholders can benefit from those provisions.
Sarah Green.
Residents at a retirement village in my constituency are concerned that existing legislation removes normal leasehold protections for those living in retirement communities, leaving residents with weak, unenforceable operator promises. Can the Minister clarify the protection for retirement village residents that upcoming leasehold reforms will introduce to ensure greater transparency and fairness?
Mr Speaker, as you'd expect, I can't preempt what will be contained in our draft Common Hold and Leasehold Reform Bill, but if the honourable lady wishes to write to me about the specific issue, I'm more than happy to provide her with a comprehensive response.
John Glenn.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Just before Christmas, Mr Rahman, a leaseholder in a Taylor Wimpey property, came to see me. There's 100 years remaining on his lease and a modest ground rent, but he can't secure a sale because Taylor Wimpey won't agree to a reasonable deed of variation in terms of the ground rent provisions. He's incurred costs of upwards of £5,000 and is basically stuck in his property. So I'd be very grateful if the Minister would look at this case. I have written to him and see if the plans that he has will be able to meet this poor individual's circumstances.
Minister.
I thank the honourable gentleman for his question. I'd say in general terms, Mr Speaker, that anyone considering extending their lease or acquiring their freehold should obviously consider seeking specialist advice from a solicitor or surveyor, but I'll ensure he receives a prompt answer to his question to see if any of the reforms we're taking forward will give some redress to his constituent.
Chair of the Select Committee, Florence Echelome.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his answer on this. And I know that this is an issue that he has been taking a lot of time to debate and look at, and he can see the cross-party support and concern from many constituents up and down the country on this big issue on leasehold. We on the Select Committee are ready to help him in terms of making sure that legislation is right, fit and proper. I just wanted to tease the Minister's answer again. Can he confirm to the House that he's still on track to ensure that we end the issue around leasehold and common hold by the end of this Parliament?
Minister.
I thank my honourable friend and the Chair of the Select Committee for that question. Absolutely, Mr. Speaker. We remain steadfast in our commitment to the promises on our manifesto to bring the feudal leasehold system to an end. Despite the noises off from the usual naysayers, the imminent publication of our ambitious draft Common Hold and Leasehold Reform Bill will be the beginning of the end for that system, one that has tainted the dream of home ownership for so many households across the country. As my honourable friend knows, this is a large and incredibly complex and technical piece of legislation, and I hope she and the rest of the House would agree that it's worth a brief extension to ensure we get things right and avoid a deficient act such as the one which the previous government left us with and we're now having to fix through primary legislation.
Dr Orpington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I take the Minister back to the circumstances of constituents who are living in retirement communities? I've got a community of constituents who live at Mitchett Heath, owned by Cognatum Estate, who are experiencing very, very high service charges. I've written to the Minister about it before, but they're made nervous by talk of delay. They're on a fixed income very often with fixed income pensions. They're getting older. They want to enjoy their retirement in peace. Can the Minister offer them any reassurance today?
Minister.
I thank the honourable gentleman for his question. He has written to me about it. He's if I politely say, generated a huge number of questions about this issue. We've met about it, I think, on one occasion. I'm more than happy to have another conversation with him to try and get to the root of his concerns.
Senator Minister Davidson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Leaseholders, like renters and prospective homeowners, have been made big promises by this government. So can I ask the Minister what assessment he has made that the impact that botched local government reorganisation, cuts to the budgets of 2/3 of England's local authorities, delays to elections, and the wholesale abolition of housing and planning authorities in England's shires will have on the delivery of these promises? This is just another promise the government isn't going to deliver, isn't it?
Minister.
Forgive me, Mr. Speaker, I don't know if the Shadow Minister's come in on the wrong question, but I can't see how in any shape or form local government reorganisation will influence in any way our ambitious leasehold and common hold reform agenda.
Most Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Fully 5 million leaseholders are plunged into the dark before Christmas. Thousands report feeling angry and abandoned. Why is it then that the government chose to delay its ending of the feudal leasehold system? And will the government go further and follow the calls from Lib Dems and others to regulate property agents and to cap extortionate service charges?
Minister.
I thank the honourable gentleman for his question. I'll answer him quite directly. The unforeseen delays in question that meant we couldn't publish the draft bill before Christmas relate to nothing more than the fact that some elements of policy and drafting are still being finalised. And as I've said, Mr. Speaker, this is a large and incredibly complex and technical bill. I think the House would support getting it right in the first instance if that means the delay of a few weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Leaseholders are being hit increasingly with flood risk and difficulty of getting insurance. Rockwell Green in my constituency flooded twice in the last 7 years. Why then is the government proposing to weaken the rules preventing development in areas of high flood risk? And how many homes will be affected in future by more flooding as a result?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we've not weakened protections against flooding. The National Planning Policy Framework, the draft that's currently out to consultation, remains clear that inappropriate development in areas at risk of flooding should be avoided by directing development away from areas at highest risk. The consultation currently underway into the statutory consultee system retains the requirement for local authorities to notify the Secretary of State before approving developments that the Environment Agency has objected to. We're not weakening the protections in the way he claims.
Question. Sean Mudcott.
Question number 5, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our manifesto committed us to delivering the biggest increase in social and affordable house building in a generation. We intend to do just that. Our £39 billion social and affordable homes programme will build around 300,000 homes over its 10-year lifetime, of which at least 60% will be social rent. ensuring communities like Banbury get the social and affordable homes they so desperately need?
Sean Mulcahy. Are you all...
I'm grateful to the Minister for his answer. Nearly...
If not, Minister. Sorry, I'm trying to find out why they all think they're in Banbury. I thought there was only one MP.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Nearly 11,000 homes in Sherwood District have been granted planning permission but remain unbuilt. This causes understandable frustration for local residents and people in the thousands of people in housing need. Can the Minister set out what action the government is taking to improve build-out so that much-needed homes are built and delivered?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my honourable friend for that question. He's a powerful advocate for the interests of Banbury, and he quite forcefully conveys that the communities he represents expect homes, infrastructure and services that have been promised as part of a planning approval to be delivered as quickly as possible. He'll welcome, I'm sure, that the new draft National Planning Policy Framework, which the Government is currently consulting on, proposes strengthened national policies to ensure major residential developments are deliverable within a reasonable period, and he'll also be reassured to know that we intend to take further action to incentivise faster build-out rates, drawing on the 2 consultations we undertook last year.
You are part of Banbury, are you?
The wider Sherwood District Council.
How far
and I'm the neighbouring constituency. Many of my residents are placed in social housing in Banbury Town.
Okay, that'll do as a link. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm grateful to my constituency neighbour for raising this important question. I wonder if the Minister could reassure my constituents, many of whom are struggling to find social housing, many of whom end up in Banbury coming from my constituency, whether or not the Social and Affordable Housing Fund will pay due attention to the challenges of providing social housing in rural settings so that those who wish to remain within their communities are able to do so and don't put extra demands on towns like Banbury.
We'll have moved, come on.
Well, our new social and affordable housing programme does provide additional flexibility for certain tenures of housing that are more difficult and costly to provide, including rural housing. He'll also, I'm sure, welcome the changes in the draft NPPF out for consultation, which again further strengthen rural affordable housing. We want to see it come forward in far greater numbers than it is at present.
Liz Twist.
Question 6, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in July last year, we set out a detailed 5-step plan to deliver a decade of renewal in social and affordable housing. That plan includes the biggest boost to grant funding in a generation, the establishment of an effective and stable regulatory regime, and action to rebuild the sector's capacity to borrow and invest in new and existing homes, all of which will help ensure councils and housing associations across the North East can deliver more homes alongside investing in existing stock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm glad to see the Government focusing so much on building social housing, including in my Blaydon and Consett constituency. It will be important, too, to maintain the stock once it's built and to look at existing stock. Can the Minister say when the issue of rent convergence will be resolved?
Minister.
I thank my honourable friend for that question. The Government remains committed, Mr. Speaker, to implementing social rent convergence to support additional investment in new and existing social housing. We'll announce a decision about how social rent convergence will be implemented later this month before the launch of the Social and Affordable Homes programme. That decision will take into account the benefits to the supply and quality of social and affordable housing, the impact on rent payers and welfare spending.
Carlton.
Number 8, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Renters' Rights Act contains provisions that allow tenants to challenge unreasonable rent increases. The new tenancy system will come into force on the 1st of May this year, at which point landlords will only be able to increase rents once per year to the market rate, and tenants will be able to challenge unreasonable increases at the first-tier tribunal. The Act will also put an end to unfair rental bidding practices and landlords demanding large amounts of rent in advance.
Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm grateful to the Minister. I regularly hear from people in Liverpool Walton being pushed out of their homes by rip-off hikes by unscrupulous landlords. The average rents in Liverpool have risen 8%, well above the average for England. And so I welcome the government has taken action through the Renters' Rights Act to tackle unfair rent increases. But I am concerned that market rents are being used as a benchmark to stop unaffordable rents rising. Could I ask, therefore, the Minister how the government will review the effectiveness of these measures and, if necessary, will it consider further action in due course?
Minister.
We will, of course, Mr. Speaker, keep the implementation of the Act under continual review, but as I've said, the provisions in the Act do allow tenants to challenge unreasonable increases at the first-tier tribunal, with the tribunal making a judgment about whether rent increases are fair and meet that market rate definition. We've been clear, however, that the government doesn't support the introduction of rent controls, including rent stabilisation measures, for the reasons we debated at some length during the passage of the Act.
The House rapidly.
We all know that rent inflation, like all inflation, is caused by over-demand and lack of supply. And we can agree on addressing problems like building more houses, tackling immigration, all that. But would the Minister agree that the more controls and regulations you impose on landlords, particularly small landlords, the more they will get out of the rented sector altogether, causing less supply, rent inflation, hitting vulnerable people?
Yeah. Minister.
I don't accept that all regulation is bad, which I think is the thrust of his question. In many ways, we've clarified and made simpler the grounds for possession that landlords can use under the Act. But he's absolutely right that we need more supply of all homes, including homes in the private rented sector, and giving support to the build-to-rent sector, which will be an important part of the market in coming years.
Question 9, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on the 11th of November last year, I set out the full details of our £39 billion 10-year social and affordable homes programme. In the coming weeks, we'll provide registered providers with the remaining information they need to finalise their business and future supplier plans so that they can submit large and ambitious proposals for when bidding opens next month.
Whereas, Mr. Speaker, and with your good grace, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the emergency services who responded so courageously across Cornwall during and in the wake of one of the worst ever storms to hit the Duchy. And also my thanks to the 600,000 people of Cornwall who heeded pre-storm advice and kept fatalities mercifully to a minimum. One loss of life is too many, but it could have been far, far worse, and over 1,000 trees down and hundreds of thousands of people plunged into darkness with no power. I do hope ministers will create the appropriate forum to discuss the lessons learnt from Storm Goretti. Mr. Speaker, the Secretary of State has confirmed that because of our unique status, Cornwall will be a single strategic authority for the purposes of devolution. The greatest threat facing the constituents of Camborne, Redruth and Hale today is the lack of social and truly affordable homes, compounded by 14,000 second homes and 25,000 Airbnbs, leading to an exodus of our young people and a chronic lack of key workers. Given these factors...
Order. I gave a lot of leeway at the beginning. I think the message will be in the question already. Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my honourable friend for his question. I think the thrust of his question was on what arrangements can be put in place for Cornwall so that it can better deliver housing and regenerate areas that have identified by the council. Strategic place partnerships, as my honourable friend will know, are reserved for mayoral strategic authorities that bring together more than one council into a combined authority. That said, not least as a result of hearing representation from my honourable friends representing Cornish seats, I've encouraged Homes England to deepen its partnership working with Cornwall Council and to explore a memorandum of understanding or similar partnership agreement to support its ambitious housing and regeneration plans.
Question 11, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Electricity at Work regulations of 1989 require people to be competent or under supervision, while building regulations require domestic electrical work to be conducted safely. The government sees no need to establish a statutory national register of electricians who may be listed on the Registered Competent Person electrical register already. Nonetheless, the government will continue to work with the building safety regulator on reforms of the Competent Persons scheme to improve public and building safety.
Sonia Kumar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the Minister for her response. Gas installers must legally register under the HSE-owned scheme, yet electricians, despite near zero Part P enforcement and around 20,000 electrical fires a year, remain governed by voluntary clubs. Even after the October 2026 rule changes, that addresses qualifications but not enforcement. Does my right honourable friend agree there must be legal protections for electricians, just like gas installers, to safeguard residents?
Mr Speaker, the Government takes electrical safety very seriously, but the risk between gas and electrical work is different. Circuit breakers can shut down electrical systems in milliseconds, protecting people from shock or fire. The consequences of a faulty gas system could be an explosion or carbon monoxide poisoning. The health and safety and electricity at work regulations already exist, and the IET wiring regulations is an accepted code of practice.
Thank you very much, Mr Chairman. Can I thank the Minister for that answer? Minister, one of the things, the National House Builders Association obviously cover electricians and what they do. Councils also have a role when it comes to pointing out those who should be registered and perhaps aren't. And I think maybe the question I want to ask Mr Speaker is a simple one. What's been done to encourage those who don't and aren't members of any electrical organisation, but by the very work that they do, they can put people's lives at risk? It's important that those who aren't registered are registered, and the quicker the better. Thank you.
Practitioners should be registered and should be at safety, but I will write to him with the specific details to answer his question. Thank you.
Number 12, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
Mr Speaker, at Spending Review 2025, we announced record investment to kickstart social and affordable housing at scale across the country. Alongside regulatory certainty and stability and measures to rebuild the capacity of registered providers after their weakening over the previous 14 years, we're ensuring communities in Aldershot will get the social and affordable housing they need.
Baker.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. A veteran in my constituency, a father of 5 young daughters, has spent nearly 3 years waiting for a 4-bedroom social home while raising his family in a 2-bedroom property. He has now been told the wait could be a further 3 years. That is 6 years of overcrowding for a family simply needing space to live and grow. Sadly, this is not an isolated case. Last year in my constituency, over 100 families were waiting for a 4-bedroom social home, but only 31 were allocated one. I welcome the government's commitment to building more social homes, but what is it the government doing to make social housing more flexible so families are not left waiting for years for the right home at the right time?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank my honourable friend for that question. I'm sorry to hear about the long wait that the veteran in question is facing. It is important that we build more social rented homes after 14 years of engineered decline. That's why 60% of our £39 billion social and affordable housing programme will be allocated to social rented homes. But it's also important that we ensure that veterans get the priority they need. That's why in November 2024 we made changes to the local connection requirement to ensure that veterans now have greater access to social housing. They should be prioritised in the way that allows for.
James McMurdo.
Number 13, please, Mr Speaker.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. We have invited views from Thurrock, Basildon and other councils undergoing local government reorganisation regarding their capacity to deliver local government reorganisation alongside elections. This is a locally led approach. Councils are best placed to judge their capacity, and we will consider their representations carefully.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I appreciate the Minister's answer in reference to this being locally led. There are genuine concerns, though, that the criteria that may be pushed forward as a justification to cancel local elections locally do not meet the standard that would be expected by the residents. So I ask you, ask the Minister, what checks and balances do they have in place to ensure that the reasons put forward match the expectations of my voters who want the elections to go ahead?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the honourable gentleman for his question and raising those points on behalf of residents. Will consider those representations that have been made and consider them alongside precedent and the legal requirements in this area, and will take very seriously the points that he raises on behalf of his constituents.
Liam Cotton.
Question 14, Mr Speaker.
Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The death of Awab Ishak, aged just 2 years old, was tragic and it was avoidable. Awab's law came into force for the social rented sector last October, and it forces landlords to fix dangerous damp and mould and emergency repairs to fixed timescales. We've consulted on a revised decent home standard, including proposing a new damp and mould standard. This will ensure landlords keep properties free from damp and mould, and we will respond to the consultation shortly.
Thank the Minister for his answer. Social housing disrepair and neglect is one of the most common issues in my inbox, particularly in Penge, Crystal Palace and Annerley. In one case, a mum in Penge saw her 2 children develop breathing problems and forced onto inhalers due to persistent damp and mould. We know that the health impacts of mould can take hold quickly, so can the Minister set out the steps his department is taking to guarantee the right of social housing tenants to immediate action in such cases, ensuring that the suffering of my constituent and her children is not repeated?
Minister.
I'm very sorry to hear how his constituent and her children have suffered in that circumstance, and I thank him for his question. OWAB's law, now in force, will require social landlords to take urgent action to fix dangerous homes, or they will face the full force of the law. As part of these reforms, landlords must now consider the circumstances of tenants which could put them at risk, including the presence of young children or those with disabilities or other health vulnerabilities. Alternative accommodation must also be offered at home if homes cannot be made safe within the required time frames. These are changes that we all hope will save lives.
Bob Jones.
Mr. Speaker, my constituents, 3 single mothers, have suffered at the hands of builders who have built substandard homes without crucial damp-proof membrane and damp-proof courses. This meant my constituents' homes were riddled with damp and mould, and the house builders have not addressed this serious fault for far too long. What steps is the Minister taking to ensure house builders can be held to account by residents, and that, if needed, the local authorities can end relationships with underperforming house builders to protect residents?
So, Steve.
Well, I mean, there are measures other than OWAB's law in place that may be able to help, if I understood the detail of the case better, but I'd be very happy to write to him. We could look at, for instance, warranties or building enforcement, which may be able to take action. But if he would be kind enough to write to me, I'll ensure that he gets a full response to that point.
Question 15, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Government is making good on long overdue promises to fundamentally update the way we fund local authorities, realigning funding with need and deprivation through the first multi-year local government finance settlement in a decade. The provisional 26-27 settlement will make available almost £78 billion in core spending power for local authorities in England, and for Greater Manchester authorities, this makes available up to £3.92 billion in core spending power in 26-27, an increase of 16.4% compared to 24-25, which is above real terms, Mr. Speaker.
Absolutely, Colin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, 40 years of Tory austerity saw the harsh cuts to local government's finances, which left our public services on its knees. This latest funding settlement by the Labour government goes a long way in the righting of the wrongs of the Tories and helping local authorities to be able to deliver quality services for our constituents once again. So can I thank the Secretary of State for giving Manchester City Council £331 million cash injection. But does the Minister recognise that the Council still faces huge pressures to meet needs, including the social services and education?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my friend for his question. As I said in this chamber a number of times, Mr. Speaker, we can provide substantial increases to councils as we need to do, and it's very important that we do so in places like Manchester. But unless we get a more preventative approach to stop children, for example, being taken into care or having really big challenges, councils will still face spiking costs. So I look forward to working with my friend and colleagues all across Greater Manchester to make this work.
Question number 16, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, the Government is taking concerted action to boost rates of house building across England, including reforming the planning system and allocating record levels of grant funding support for social and affordable house building over the coming years to the benefit of Stoke-on-Trent and the rest of the country.
Gareth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Minister for that answer. Stoke-on-Trent has benefited from money from the Brownfield Regeneration Fund, but there are many brownfield sites standing across the city that could be used as part of our local plan development, but the owners simply are not engaging with the process. Given that we are not in a mayoral combined authority, the compulsory purchase powers are limited. So would the Minister consider devolving those powers to authorities like Stoke, and if not, would he consider interim development corporations until such time as we have a mayor in place?
I thank my honourable friend for his question. He's a doughty champion for his constituency, Mr Speaker, and continues to make a powerful case for the renewal of Hanley City Centre as the commercial heart of North Staffordshire. I've had a series of constructive meetings with my honourable friend and other local leaders about the Hanley Master Plan. I know he'll welcome the £8 million of investment into Burston Town Centre, delivering 800 homes. I'm more than happy to continue the conversation with him about the possibility of a new locally led development corporation to take forward the regeneration of the city centre.
We're going to Choplals, Dr. Peter Prince. Stay.
Mr Speaker, house building in this country ground to a near halt in 2023 because the previous government failed to reform our planning system despite knowing it's too slow, too cumbersome and deters development. Our Planning and Infrastructure Act received royal assent on the 18th of December last year. It delivers fundamental reform to the planning system, speeding up the delivery of new homes and critical infrastructure. Thanks to this government, young people who have been denied the chance of their own home will now get the key to their own front door at last.
Dr. Peter Prince.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I am concerned about the villages in my most beautiful constituency of Bury St Edmunds and Stowmarket. Now, people tell me they are increasingly concerned about the lack of affordable housing in rural communities. So could the Minister explain what steps he's taking to increase the supply of affordable housing for local people in rural villages through reforms to the planning system, including how these reforms support the rejuvenation and long-term sustainability of our villages?
Well, it's topical. Peter, you said example. Come on. Who's doing it? Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Our planning changes will support rural affordable housing by giving rural authorities greater flexibility to require affordable housing on smaller sites. And of course, our £39 billion social and affordable homes programme opens to bids next month, and that is available to rural authorities as well.
Shadow Secretary of State Sir James Cleverly.
Mr Speaker, I am sure we will all agree that we cannot have sustainable communities if we don't have sustainable high streets. But would the right honourable gentleman agree that a four-fold increase in business rates over this Parliament does not make high street businesses sustainable?
Well, of course, high streets are vital to local communities. That's why it was so sad to see during the 14 years that they were in power and he served in Cabinet, our high streets fall into severe decline up and down the country with closed down units, shutters in front of them, graffiti and litter in front of those buildings, deterring people from going there. This government is committed to restoring our high streets and protecting the businesses that operate there.
Mr Speaker, so many words and yet no answer. I asked him specifically about a four-fold increase. A four-fold increase, for example, like the White Lion on Streatham High Road in his constituency is facing. A 400% increase, even after transitional relief, from £3,000 a year to £12,000 a year. So will he urge the Chancellor to scrap business rates for businesses like the White Lion in Streatham High Street and other hospitality, leisure and businesses on the High Street?
I'm sure he knows that the specific measures put in place during the pandemic were always intended to come to an end. His government was going to do the same thing. The Chancellor is looking at the impact of re-evaluation. She is fully aware of the concerns raised by publicans in Streatham and elsewhere across the country, is reviewing the situation, and we expect an announcement in due order.
Durham, such as the Milburn Gate site and Stack in the city centre, have been stalled for years. This hasn't just left two white elephants in the city centre, it's had a significant impact on jobs, the economy and key venues left undeveloped. So what steps is the Minister taking to ensure that major developments in the city of Durham and across the country are not subject to long delays?
Well, I appreciate the concern my honourable friend raises. We have strengthened in the draft MPVF that's currently out to consultation policies that will ensure that major residential schemes are built out in reasonable time periods. I'm more than happy to have a conversation with her about how that may impact on developments in her constituency.
Mr Speaker, the Secretary of State will be aware that the so-called fair funding settlement will leave my own council of Richmond upon Thames some £29 million worse off over the next 3 years, leaving our most vulnerable residents, including children with complex needs and elderly people, facing cuts in critical services, even if the council raises council tax by 5%. Will he extend the transitional period?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've heard what the honourable member has said, and I'll take that as part of the consultation process that we're in. She mentions the needs of children. She will have heard me say to other colleagues, we've got to change the way that we work in that area, and I'll happily work with her to make sure that we can cut the costs and get better outcomes for our kids.
Yes. UK is paralysed as a result of a spinal cord injury. After treatment, there's a 20% chance of being sent to a care home due to a lack of suitable available housing. Can you imagine being a young person coping with one of the most traumatic moments of life and you are left literally lying by yourself? This is unacceptable. Will the Minister meet with me and the APPG to discuss this serious lack of suitable housing?
I thank my honourable friend for that question. We have made proposals in the draft MPPF that's out for consultation to set higher new requirements for authorities to deliver more accessible housing. This includes proposals, Mr. Speaker, to provide mandatory accessibility standards for 40% of new builds and ensure local plans provide for wheelchair accessible homes. I'm more than happy to have another conversation with my honourable friend about this issue.
For February's government consultation on local government reorganisation, will the Minister be consulting on all four, I think it's four, options put forward by Devon, and how will she weight the criteria to decide on a selected, amended or perhaps new proposal in June?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the honourable member, who I just can't quite see, I thank the honourable member for his input on this. We've set out the process that we'll be undertaking, and we'll be judging those proposals from Devon against the published criteria.
Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Families in Worcester are trapped in damp and mouldy homes. Disabled tenants are stuck without facilities and access, and repairs are going unaddressed, all because platform housing refuse to get their act together. What can we do about failing social landlords like Platform?
I'm sorry to hear about the challenges that my honourable friend's constituents are facing at the hands of their landlord. Tenants who are unhappy with the landlord's handling of complaints can go to the Housing Ombudsman, and the regulator of social housing will also investigate evidence of systematic failure. He's welcome to keep me updated as to whether his constituents see any improvement in the services being provided over the coming months.
Dr. Luke Evans.
The government is insistent on forcing through local government reorganisation when there's no agreement in Leicestershire. There are 3 different plans ahead. One thing that Leicestershire does agree on is not to have expansion of Leicester City. So on that basis, would he put that to the test and have a referendum so that the people of Leicestershire can show the government just how much they do not want the city expansion?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the honourable gentleman for his input there on the reorganisation process. As I mentioned some moments ago, we've set out the process we'll be undertaking. We'll be consulting fully and judging each of the proposals against the criteria that we've already set out.
Liz Twist.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The recovery grant guarantee is an absolutely vital mechanism which protects the most deprived authorities. Will the department commit to increasing the guarantee to match the national average core spending power increase to ensure that the areas who need funding the most are fairly protected?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my friend for her comments on the fair funding review and on the recovery grant, which was needed due to the significant damage that was done to council finances by 14 years of Tory misrule. I've, Mr. Speaker, already met scores of colleagues to talk about council funding, and I'll be meeting scores more over the next couple of days. So I look forward to talking directly with her about the proposal that she mentions.
Carl.
Mr. Speaker, the Birmingham residents have had just their first anniversary in relation to bin strikes. We've spent more than £15 million on agency staff. So I ask the Minister, will they personally intervene to help broker a deal between the trade unions and Birmingham City Council?
Thanks, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the honourable gentleman for raising the needs of Birmingham residents, because in the end they should come first. Everybody deserves a good bin service, and we want all parties to come to the table and to deal with this as swiftly as humanly possible.
Jonathan Blash.
Speaker,
In purporting to discharge their homelessness duty, some southern local authorities are bundling vulnerable people into taxis in the middle of the night and dumping them in Hartlepool because our housing is cheaper. It is a vile, vile way in which they are acting. I welcome the Minister's writing to me and setting out her belief that we need to ban this poor practice. Will she agree we need to ban this practice outright?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I just give my personal thanks to my friend for his intervention on this issue. We noted it in the homelessness strategy as being extraordinarily challenging and important. I want to take action on it, but I want to thank him for the work that he's already done on behalf of Hartlepool residents, and we'll continue to work together to sort this problem out.
Alicia Kearns.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rutland's Council could have submitted its own proposals for local government reform, but they left our fate in the hands of others. They've submitted to join North Leicestershire, but this is in opposition to the wishes of residents, which they know, but they purposely did not ask residents what we wanted. Stamford residents want to join Rutland, Rutlanders want to join with Stamford, so will the Minister meet me to make sure all residents are consulted on the Rutland and Stamford model, which the Council has taken off the table?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and perhaps I might congratulate her for laying out to the House what sounds like a complicated situation for her constituents. We'll take that under advisement as part of the process. And, Mr. Speaker, I'm always happy to make myself available to meet members of this House.
Thank you, Mr.
Speaker. With many local authorities spending less than 1% of their household support fund on furniture, many domestic abuse survivors are being placed in social housing without access to essential furniture or white goods. What assurances can the Minister give to residents in Harewood and Middleton North this winter who, although grateful for the fresh start that social housing can offer, are living in properties often with children that feel bare, cold and not like home?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my friend for raising this really, really important issue, and it's one of the reasons why I and the Safeguarding Minister worked very closely together on both the homelessness strategy and the violence against women and girls strategy to make sure that that area of policy joined up. 16% of homelessness is actually caused by domestic abuse, and that's why we won't stop until those families leaving refuge have got a decent place to be, including the furniture they need to make a house a home.
Josh Babrinda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The severe weather emergency protocol has ended in East Sussex, and today 5 individuals who were provided with accommodation under that have come into my constituency office not knowing where to turn now. We've got amazing charities locally doing some great work, but can the Minister offer some advice to those folks who've come into the office who need desperate support to get out of the situation they're in?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank so much the honourable member for raising this case on the floor of the House in the way that he has done. It just shows all of the different reasons why people can find themselves without a roof over their head. The local authority should be in the lead in supporting them, but if he wants to contact me with further details, I'll make sure that the local authority has the support that they need to.
Lee Barron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm proud to have secured a £20 million investment in the Pride of Corby project. That's £2 million a year, every year for the next 10 years. And what's crucial now is that it's the local communities that determine how and where this investment is spent. Does my right honourable friend agree that this money must be spent on exactly what the community actually wants, with residents properly consulted and local people as the decision makers?
Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend is completely right. We are very clear that communities must be in the driving seat. This is why we've asked for neighbourhood boards to be set up, which is why we've asked for neighbourhood boards to determine the priorities that the investment goes into. The one requirement we have of local areas is that there is a bigger conversation in the community so that everyone is involved in shaping what is invested in and reviving their place.
Thank
you, Mr. Speaker. When the Minister said that residents of Birmingham do matter when it comes to the bin strikes, I absolutely agree with her. But so do the neighbouring constituencies where we often get the blight of additional fly tipping, and constituents work at the council too. Will she personally undertake, though, to get people not just round the table, but to get this sorted out once and for all?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the Right Honourable Lady for raising this on behalf of her constituents. Clearly, the impact of fly tipping is a worry to us all, and she raises the seriousness of the issue, which I and the Secretary of State also recognise.
Dr. Simon Offer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In Stroud, we have 4,000 council houses. We need at least double that. So would the Minister look again at the constraints that councils are under and see whether they can enable them to build more council houses?
Mr Speaker, we are committed to reinvigorating council house building, which is essential to boost and sustain higher rates of housing supply in the years ahead. We've already taken decisive action to support councils to build at scale once again, including reforming the right to buy and launching the Council House Building Skills and Capacity Programme. But of course, we'll keep the matter under review to see what further support we can provide.
Other chance.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Thank you, Mr Speaker. When will the government take steps to address embodied carbon in buildings?
Well, the Honourable Lady can look forward to future building standards being brought into force later this year.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I have received an increased number of casework across the winter months from residents of Harlow who are suffering from damp and mould in their houses. Harlow residents deserve quicker repairs and higher standards from landlords. Of course, Abe's law is to be welcome, but can the Minister confirm what enforcement measures will be used to ensure that landlords adhere to these legislations?
Landlords will face the full force of the law if they fail to comply with regulations that have now come into force thanks to Awab's law. We expect tenants and social housing to get a lot better than they've seen over recent decades.
Graham Stewart.
The local government settlement strips £27 million from the East Riding of Yorkshire Council. I learnt today an additional £21 million cost over the next 3 years from the minimum wage and the jobs tax. Does the Secretary of State really think it's acceptable that local residents should have sky-high council tax rises and falling quality of services?
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the honourable gentleman for his question. He and I were both in this House for the entire period of austerity, which was landed at the door of town halls almost more than anybody else. So if he wants to look for somebody to blame for the parlour state of council finances, I would recommend to him a mirror.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Several prominent buildings in Stafford have been left vacant for long periods, with landlords allowing sites to fall into disrepair, and they have no intention of bringing them up to standard. Labour-led Stafford Borough Council is trying to act proactively to tackle these eyesores, but what advice and support can the government offer to good councils that are seeking to address property hoarding and unlock sites for regeneration?
Mr Speaker, thank you to my honourable friend for raising this important issue. We are very clear that we want to boost the power of communities to revive their places. This is why we are rolling out high street rental auctions, stronger and more streamlined CPO powers, the community right to buy and pride in place, and we will work with any council that wants to take back control of their place and revive their communities.
Iqbal Mohammed.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The main cemetery in Dewsbury is approaching full capacity following increased burial since the COVID pandemic. The local authority has been aware of this issue for several years. However, there remains significant uncertainty and concerns become increasingly urgent. The issue is particularly cultural and religious significance, with only 2 burial plots remaining for Muslim burials. What steps will the Secretary of State take to support local authorities in addressing burial capacity shortages in Kirklees?
Thank you, Mr Speaker. We are conscious of some of the pressure in parts of the country around cemeteries and burial. We understand the urgency. I would ask the honourable member to write to me with the specifics of the issue in his patch, and we will respond in due course.
Rachel Maskell.
Speaker, the local housing allowance covers just over half of private rents for social tenants in York, as private rents are so extortionate. So will the government look at the broad rental market area, which doesn't work for our area, and review it, because it hasn't been reviewed properly since 2008?
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the honourable lady for her question, and I'm working closely with my DWP colleagues. We know that there are many problems in the private rented sector and affordability. Ministers have mentioned some of the action we're taking today, but we'll be working with DWP to do more.
Helen Morgan.
Very much, Mr Speaker. Shropshire Council had its funding cut in the local government finance settlement, despite needing exceptional financial support this year and a surging demand for social care in years to come, which cannot be managed down by the council. Will the Minister meet with me so that we can discuss how to put Shropshire on a stable financial footing into the future?
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I'd like to thank the honourable lady for her question. I've already met with her, and I'll be very happy to meet with her again.
Catherine Atkinson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Hundreds of new homes are being built at Frigate's Goodyard, originally a 19th century rail depot.
This development is near the city centre, but other housing that was built further out under the Conservatives went up with inadequate transport and little thought towards public transport. What is being done to ensure that new homes have the transport infrastructure that they need?
I'm more than happy to sit down with my honourable friend and discuss the matter in more detail.
Mr. Brownfellow.
Mr. Speaker, constituents on a new build estate in Chichester were ordered without warning to pay an extra £180 a month on top of the £212 that they were already paying. When the government brings forward their planned legislation, will it stamp out these enormous price hikes and will it hold road management companies to account?
Well, as I've said, Mr. Speaker, we are intending to switch on the relevant provisions in the 2024 Leasehold and Freehold Reform Act that provide consumers with protections. I'd encourage her to submit her views to the consultation, and I'm more than happy to pick it up with her outside the chamber.
Elise Midgley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the Minister consider that all local authorities within the most deprived areas will see an above-average increase in core spending power in each year of the local government multi-year settlement, including in Liverpool City region?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my honourable friend for her question. I'm very proud to say that this settlement reconnects council funding with deprivation, and I've explained to the House before the detail of that. We'll make sure that all councils are heard during this consultation period, and I look forward to working with her as one of my good friends and colleagues from our city region, which is, of course, Mr. Speaker, as you know, the best one in the country.
After Lancashire, definitely. Minister, let's have Luke. Max Wilkinson, final question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister is aware of the parlour state of the finances of Gloucester City Council. Can she give me reassurance that even if we agree or disagree with the local government reorganisation process, that there won't be delays to it as a result of Gloucester's difficulties with its money?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I've heard what the honourable gentleman has said, and we'll take it under advisement as part of the reorganisation process. We want to get on with it so that councils can stabilise their organisation and their finances and get on with delivering for the public.
Order.